I messaged my York, what we call York Ridge Runners, running group back home. And I said, hey guys, I just like signed up, but I'm on the wait list. And they're like, oh, just sign up, get on the wait list. And that's what I did. Well, next thing you know, the next day, so I don't know how wait lists work. I've never been on like a wait list. The next day I get in like right away. I just get an email. And so then I told my friends, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need you guys to sign up with me.
So like what you're trying to tell future people and clients and the people on this podcast is that you should compete, but it's not only just the competition itself. Like you're at a different level of competition, but it's the what is it doing for your lifestyle and longevity, which is very key for people as well. Welcome to the John Gardina Classroom, where I have an opportunity to share wisdom from my experiences and those of each guest who I have on this show. The four pillars holding the foundation of this classroom together are my faith, family, fitness, and freedom. You will find many great resources on this podcast, which includes prayers, testimonies, my 40 Days of Deliverance program, my book, Freedom to Ascend, and specific strategies to live a fulfilled life. To be a part of my classroom or would like more information behind who I am, simply go to johnGardina.com. I also have limited coaching spots as well on my website. If you're interested in the investment of becoming the best version of your present self. I hope you enjoy this episode, and if something stood out, like it, share it, or make a comment on social media. Remember, we only get one shot in this life. Therefore, exhaust your gifts now. Welcome to the John Gardina Classroom. Today we have a special guest, Jill from Tennessee. First time I met her was at the Mid-State Mile back in June. She is a very, very competitive athlete in everything she does. I have to imagine that she's competitive in all areas of her life. We never met formally when we were down there, but just listening to her story and the similarities that her and I have with family members. And we both grew up next to each other. She was from PA. I'm in Ohio. She does live now, again, like I said, in Tennessee. And we're just going to talk about the Mid-State Mile and kind of go back about what makes her tick and why she's such a gritty individual. So, Jill, thank you for being on the John Gardina Classroom today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So let's start with the Mid-State Mile. When did you sign up for that race?
Yeah, that's always a good question. So I signed up, I believe, like a month before it. I was just looking at different races in the area, and that one came up, and I knew the format was very different than any race I've ever done. And my personality is just one of those like, heck, why not do it? It's different. So yeah, it was about a month right before.
Yeah. How did you get in? Isn't it usually packed? Because I know the sign up is January 1st at noon, and I signed up right away and fortunate to get in. Would you have some strings pulled for you or what? What happened there?
Right? I know. So actually I signed up, and I had some friends. I was like, maybe they'll do it with me, 10 out, because I really looked into the race. I was like, oh, it looks like something they'll want to 10 out with. And I was like, I don't really know anybody. And so I messaged Mid-State, and at the time I didn't really know who operated it. And I messaged them on Facebook. I'm like, hey, I just signed up. Or actually, no, let's rewind. I did not message them at first. I messaged my York, what we call York Ridge Runners, running group back home. And I said, hey guys, I just like signed up, but I'm on the wait list. And they're like, oh, just sign up, get on the wait list. And that's what I did. Well, next thing you know, the next day, so I don't know how wait lists work. I've never been on like a wait list. The next day I get in like right away. I just get an email. And so then I told my friends, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need you guys to sign up with me because I didn't think I was going to get it. I just randomly signed up. So then that's when I had some of my guy friends sign up. And I was messaging Becca at the time through Midstay. I didn't know it was her, but I was like, hey, I got in, but I really need my friends to get in. Like, are they going to get in? And that's when she said, most people who get on the wait list, just it's very common in almost every race that, very close to like the last few weeks leading up, people will back out. So she said, it's very likely that they will. She said, so yes, like count on it that they won't get in. So I think at the time when I signed up, it just happened to be the perfect timing where people were also backing out. So.
Yeah. Well, hey, it was meant to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's great because I know of people who have signed up and haven't got in. I know those who waited just like you and they got in just like you. So let's talk about maybe the week before mid-state. This is the first time you ever done a last man standing?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's new to you. Same to me. First time I've ever done a race like that. So let's talk about the day of the race. Did you have you and your friends? So obviously it was nice that you had your friends with you. Was there two guys friends?
Yeah. There's two guys. Yep.
Okay. What's their names?
I had a guy, Ryan Kirk, with me, and then one of the other guys at the gym. I can't even think of his name right now. Who was with us, but yeah, it was yeah.
We got to give them credit. We got to give them credit, right?
Yeah, so I always look into races ahead of time and I'm like, what did the females do? Like what's the top female? So I looked and I saw that Aaliyah did, I believe 60 miles the year before. So when I calculated, I was like, okay, that's averaging again. I didn't like track the 20-minute intermission things, but that's about like 20 hours. So I was like, okay, I got to go for about 20 hours. And like, that's long, and then I did the math, the guys last year were obviously like 38 hours.
It's okay. Yeah, that's all right. So then, when you set up at your station, did you have all your nutrition you thought you need for a day, or what did you really honestly? Let's start before you even start the race. Let's start with the question: how long were you planning on running? What was the plan?
So my goal was to just be last female. And then obviously if I get it, make past that. So my goal was to at least do the 60. So that was my goal. And yeah.
And you hit it, right? I know. So you don't know this, but I came there. So I did it, and I lasted for 13 hours, 13 and a half hours. Just had the headlight on for like 3 laps. And again, that's a whole nother show what I could have done and should have done. But the point is this: it was a great experience. And I came there the next day when you guys had the 24-hour break. And I heard there's 7 left, and there's a girl in there. I'm like, really? I go, that's awesome. It really was to know that. And I came to Justin's side when he was sleeping. And when he woke up, he looked at me and he's like, what's up, brother? And I'm like, man, you're still going strong. And I go, what, do you need anything? He's like, I think my wife's making me SpaghettiOs. I'm like, dude, SpaghettiOs? Like, first thing? It's just crazy to see what people eat. So let's walk through after the 24-hour period. Where were you at?
Yeah. After 24, because then I went for like 27 hours. And I think the nighttime was the hardest for me. So I guess once it became light out, it started getting, not, I wouldn't say easier, but a little bit easier than the dark time. But it was really hard for me to eat. I was starting to have stomach issues. And probably every loop I came back, I was like, I'm done. And like,
That's what I heard. I heard people say that, like, hey, Jill, every time she came in, she was like, that's it. I'm done. And they would be like, you're not done. You're come back out with us. You probably said that at least 20 times, right?
like, uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. And I'm very competitive. So it's like John's like, no, you're not. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm not. Like but there's just a point, like when I did stop, I just couldn't go anymore. But it was also the guys, they were really like, come on, Jill. Like basically we were one big family. And it was like I didn't want to leave them, and I just wanted to keep going. I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. And I think as like a female, and like I said before in other podcasts, that I grew up with all guys. And so I'm used to being the only female a lot of times in groups and trying to keep up with the boys. And so it was nothing new to me, I guess you could say. But seeing them, it just something that I wanted to like, not prove to myself, I guess, but just like also show other women that like, you can, just because we are female, like you can do it just as much as other guys can, I was trying to hang in there as long as possible.
Oh, I agree. No, and you did well. Obviously, you broke the record for any female running that race first and foremost, and you have just a tenacity about you in your soul and your spirit of how you run, and you're so competitive. And we'll get to why in a little bit, but the thing I liked learning about you is I also am friends with people. I call them the one percenters, and I have a friend who I run with who's done triathlons, Ironmans, and I run with her on the weekends. And then another friend who I've not met, but she lives in Oregon. Her name's Bree Hagan, and her daughter's coming to Notre Dame College, which is 10 minutes from where I live. So I'll finally get to meet her. And same thing, she's done marathons and all these events that make her and Jen and you part of the 1% club. So the 1% club is people who just go over and above what they ever could imagine. And you're an elite class. Let's put it that way, Joe. You really are. Yeah. And I think what I'd like to dive into now is how did you get to where you're at today? So the question I'll ask is, tell a little bit about your family dynamics and how you are at, maybe not right now, but how you just the background to make Jill who she is today, the character.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I mentioned, growing up, it was me and my brother, and then my parents. I was always into sports. So the main sports I played growing up were field hockey and basketball. So I just always played like, contact sports. I was very competitive. My dad was football and baseball player, captain of sports. So like, I think he also molded me and my brother into who we are. And my dad coached my brother a lot in baseball. And so he's very hard on my brother. And my mom was like the baton twirler or something. So
All right. Can't relate to that one, right? Yeah.
okay, yeah. And she played like she played the flute, so she was more like a band geek type of person. But yeah. Yeah. And so but my mom was the person who drove, I mean, she did everything for us. She drove us to everything we needed to be. But yeah, so and then my cousins who every summer, like who my aunt would watch us when we were younger, was three boys, and my brother, me, and then we also had like three friends that were boys that they were brothers and they came along. So I was the only girl, and then my aunt. So it was just always with them. We would play like knockout basketball. We would one thing, and I don't ever mention, I don't say this much, but like the boys would always threaten me, like if I were like mean to them or I didn't keep up or if I lost, they would threaten me with like a swirly. Do you know what like a swirly is? Like in the toilet.
A little fear driven, right?
So like I think that yes, so I think that really haunted me. Like it's probably I think that's probably where my anxiety started because, like, I was like, I want to be upside down. I don't want to get my hair flushed in the toilet. Like, so yeah, so they just so I just had to be tough. Like, they really made me, you know, be who I am. Don't like I had to keep up with them. Like, we went swimming all the time. We fished. I did the quote unquote boy thing. So, yeah, so then just playing sports, I was very great at, like, I'm not being about myself, but I was a great athlete. I was captain and stuff. So, But yeah, and then I go to college, and I was like, you know what am I going to study? And I decided to pursue something in fitness. And that's why I decided my degrees in like fitness management, exercise science. And after college, I moved to Florida. And so, I've always been somebody who likes to take chances. My mom used to always tell me, do this stuff while you're young. So that's where I was like, you know what? I have nothing here at home like stopping me. So I'm going to go move to Florida and see what life is like there. So I did that. And within maybe it was the second year, that's when like my whole life pretty much turned upside down. And I'll never forget like the phone call I got, from my dad, which at the time, like me and my dad talk every single day now, but at the time, my parents are high school sweethearts, but at the time, my dad and I didn't really call each other unless it was like car related. Like it was, Dad, I got a car problem, you know. Mom, it was 3 times a day probably. And so I get the call that, Jill, like your mom just had a stroke. And I actually had a friend that came down and to visit me that time. And I'm 23 years old. My mom's 53. And I'm just like, stroke, like what? Like, I just know you go numb on one side. Like, what does that mean? Like, is that bad? Is that like, she gonna be okay? And you can tell everyone doesn't really want to tell me, like, cause I'm 1,000 miles away. What am I going to do? I can't do anything. And so it wasn't until the next morning, like I flew home. They flew me home, my aunt and uncle, and it was just a whirlwind of an event. And that was on a Wednesday that she had the stroke, and just very quickly escalated. And unfortunately, she passed away on that Saturday.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it's been hard for me and my family. We all.
And that was six years ago. That was 6 years ago.
Yep. At the end of February was 6 years. So.
Yeah. So I mean, so the strong woman in your life who you talk to multiple times a day, out of the blue, has a stroke, and she passes that week, and your whole world's turned upside down. So through that grieving process, what kind of transpired for you in your life, mentally? Just in your job, were you angry? Were you upset about how things turned out so quickly in your life?
Yeah. So I think a lot of it for me personally, obviously I was upset, and now I always say I'm not an emotional person, and I don't really think I am as much as like other people I know. But I think with me, it was more anger. I say anger because all of a sudden my mom, who is pretty healthy compared to a lot of other people, no offense to anyone else, but she didn't do like hardcore drugs or anything that could have just purposely killed her or whatever, but God just took her away. And I had so many questions. Why did this happen? She's such a good everyone. And I mean, her funeral, we had to have 2 days worth because she had so many people that came to her visitation. And it was just like, again, I was so mad. And then this was what leads into me basically joining CrossFit, because I went to therapy. I almost think, me personally, everyone has their own experience, but I went and I almost thought it was too soon, because I would leave therapy getting upset, and I didn't, again, just because I'm not very emotional, I didn't like that feeling. I wanted to start feeling better, and I felt like I was just feeling like I didn't like crying. I was like, I don't want to feel this way. And I was just so angry. I wanted to get that anger out, but in a healthy way. And so I was never a big drinker. I knew alcohol would never be something I would run to, just because I hated feeling hungover.
Terrible feeling, especially as an athlete. It's a performer, a killer.